So Samsung has recently launched the duo of its budget flagship devices, the Note 10 Lite and the S10 Lite. Now I'll cut to the chase. On paper, the S10 Lite clearly stands out as the winner. But then again, Samsung must have had something up its sleeve, thinking of launching the Note 10 Lite at a price point of just 1000 cheaper than the S10 Lite, right? No? Maybe? Let's find out. Hey guys, this is Varun from Guiding Tech, and today I'll be putting the Note 10 Lite against the S10 Lite to see which one deserves your money. Well, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing to talk about here is the design. Now, the S10 Lite feels a tad bit more premium thanks to its more elegant curves, but other than that, both the devices have the same feel. Now, both the devices have a glass-stick build, which is basically looks like glass, feels like plastic, basically feels cheap, which is kind of weird and not Samsung-like. But then again, obviously they had to do some cost cutting to bring the flagship devices at this price point. Now, other than that, there's not a lot separating the two devices, and in hand, both the devices feel just about the same. However, there are certain differences when you talk about the bottom section of both the devices. For starters, the Note 10 Lite packs in a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is missing on the S10 Lite. Also, the speaker setup on the Note 10 Lite is a bit smaller since it makes room for the S Pen. Now, obviously, the S Pen is the major reason why you'd want to buy the Note 10 Lite. But let me just break it right away. The S Pen is good, but it is quite different from the Note 10 Plus. See, you do miss out on all the air gestures. The only thing that the S Pen on the Note 10 Lite offers are air actions, which is basically you interacting with the button on the S Pen, and that's about it. Now, moving on to the display, there's not a lot to talk about here. Both the devices have literally the same panel. It's a 6.7-inch Full HD Super AMOLED display with an Infinity O notch at the top, which is something I genuinely like and admire more over a water drop notch. Also, for content consumption, both the devices not only make the colors pop out, but they both come with Widevine L1 certification. So whether it's Amazon Prime or Netflix, everything should work just great. Okay, so let's talk about the camera for a bit. Now, on paper, you might just notice the 48 megapixel sensor on the S10 Lite versus the 12 megapixel sensor on the Note 10 Lite and be done with it and think that the S10 Lite is better. But what most people miss out on is the difference between both the apertures, which actually ends up deciding the camera comparison between the phones. Now, in normal daylight conditions, the Note 10 Lite does a good job of capturing more light and eliminating the shadows in certain areas. But the S10 Lite produces more crisp images. Now, this is mainly due to the 48 megapixel images pixel binned into a smaller resolution. This difference is even more clearer when talking of indoor shots, as you can see. However, moving on to low light photography, the story changes. By default itself, the Note 10 Lite allows for more light to seep in, thus giving a more clearer image. Now turn on the night mode and you have a very good image with minimal noise. On the other hand, S10 Lite struggles in low light and noise is also quite evident. Now the S10 Lite does manage to retain its place when you talk of videos, at least to some extent. Both the phones offer a super steady mode for videos that makes your footage quite stable. Now, one thing that the Note does better is that it supports 4K recording up to 60 FPS, while the S10 Lite caps out at 30 FPS only. Now, when talking of selfies, both the phones have the same 32 megapixel sensor, but post-processing makes a little bit of difference. The images from the S10 Lite appear slightly saturated, while the Note 10 Lite produces a little more true tone results. Other than that, as you can see, there's not a lot separating the two. Okay, so let's talk about the performance for a while. Now, the S10 Lite comes with a non-plus Snapdragon 855 processor, which even by today's standards is great. The Note 10 Lite, on the other hand, well, it comes with an Exynos 9610, which was last seen on the Galaxy S9. Yeah, the Galaxy S9. Now, it's not a bad chipset, it's still a flagship processor, but obviously it feels outdated and shows the kind of cost cutting that Samsung has done on the Note 10 Lite. Also, it's worth pointing out that while we are comparing a price difference of just 1000, the Note 10 Lite comes with just 6GB of RAM, while the S10 Lite offers 8GB of RAM as well. Now, for day-to-day usage, both the devices feel great and you wouldn't really notice a difference. In fact, even while gaming, both the devices can push PUBG and Call of Duty to the highest settings without breaking a sweat. That said, overall Exynos chipsets are still not that preferred when compared against a Snapdragon one. And there are a couple of reasons for that. For instance, Exynos chipsets don't age that well. So if you have a Samsung device and maybe you're using it for about say 8 or 9 months, the performance you'll be getting after that period will be quite different and a little bit sluggish as compared to when you took the phone out of the box and set it up and was using it. Another thing that kind of like affects a lot of users is Gcam. So there isn't any Gcam for Exynos chipsets. I mean, there are a certain level of ports, but let's be honest, those are not stable. Lastly, the biggest problem here is the battery life, which brings us to the battery life of both the devices. So both the phones come with a 4500 mAh battery along with support for 25 watt fast charging, which is great. Now the only difference between both the devices is that while both of them will last you an entire day, the S10 Lite is something that you can just pick up the next day in the morning and still go to work and maybe use it for a while and then plug it in. Whereas for the Note 10 Lite, you'll have to charge it up a bit before leaving for your work, school, whatever. So yeah, charging times aren't that massive, it's good and fast charging is there, but yeah, if you're planning on using it for extended periods without charging, the S10 Lite does have a slight edge over the Note 10 Lite. Okay, so this brings us to the main question as to which phone is right for you. Well, for most users, including me, the S10 Lite is the clear winner. Then again, the Note 10 Lite's S Pen along with 4K recording up to 60 FPS and exceptionally great low light performance makes it ideal for artists and content creators. I mean, it basically boils down to the main question. Do you really need the S Pen? It's great, and while it's not as good as the one found on the Note 10 Plus, it is still quite functional and basically aids for a lot of users for their creative needs. So yeah, do you need the S Pen or not? Once you have the answer to that question, you know which one to buy. And with that, we come to an end of this video. Now if you like this video, make sure to like us, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon right next to it. Also, if you have any more queries, shout off below. Lastly, if you'd like to see a more detailed camera comparison of the Note 10 Lite versus the S10 Lite, similar to what I did with the OnePlus 70 and the S10 Lite, links to which will be below, make sure to comment for that as well. This is Varun from Guiding Tech and I'll see you in the next one.